I mean, yes, it's a special matter.
I know, yes.
Thank you.
Very special.
Maybe not in the way he thinks.
We're ready, Dave.
Today is a 70 to 90% chance of.
Okay, I'd like to call to order the February 5th meeting of the Minnetonka Park Board. Kelly, do you want to call roll?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Hanley.
Present.
Jacobs.
Present.
Simersky.
Here.
Vitale.
Here.
Ingraham.
Here. Okay, then the next step is the approval of the agendas. Any questions or comments about the agenda or a motion to approve it?
I'd be happy to approve the motion.
Move to approve it, okay.
Approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Or you want to actually?
I can call it.
Call
yeah.
it off?
Sounds
Okay.
good. Hanley.
Approve.
Jacobs.
Approve.
Simersky.
Approve.
Vitale. Ingraham.
Approve. Next up is item 4, the approval of the minutes from the January 8th meeting. Any comments or questions about the minutes, or do I have a motion to approve?
I'll motion to approve the January 8th minutes.
Second.
Hanley.
Approve.
Jacobs.
Approve.
Simersky.
Approve.
Vitale. Ingraham.
Approve. Item 5 are citizens wishing to discuss items not on the agenda. No one's here and no one's on the phone, so we'll
Correct.
move on to special matters.
We don't
No
have any
special
special
matters
matters this
today.
evening.
So our first business item is 7A, the Grays Bay Marina summary.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, 7A, as you mentioned, the Grays Bay Marina summary. We have Kaylee Coonan here. She's the Assistant Community Facilities Superintendent who oversees Grays Bay Marina, and she will give us a summary of the 2024 season. So I'll turn it over to Kaylee.
We're on. For all those listening at home, right? Thank you for having me. As you can see in your packet, I have the Grays Bay Marina summary attached. We had another successful year. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the marina and that the city oversees part of the marina along with the DNR. So we oversee the gas dock along with the boat slips and the little building on the property. We opened our season March 4th to all, to everyone. So it's a public launch. So it was open March 4th when the ice was off, and slip holders, we opened it up on March 20th. We began staffing it on May 13th. So that's pretty early, about average, but maybe a little bit early during the season. We operate the gas dock during prime hours, which is approximately 10 to 6 or 8 depending on the time of year. We go off of sunset primarily, but it's either 6 or 8 o'clock. Later in the summer it's 8 o'clock. The restrooms were open to the public and as well as Biffy's, so we close the restrooms when staff is not on site because the bathrooms can get messy. So that's when the Biffy's are available. Around 24,000 gallons of gas were sold. In 2020, or we renewed the leases for 2025, and we had 5 vacancies. So we filled those 5 vacancies. The slip fee is $4,200, which is, we compare to other municipal boat slips and as well as public or private. So we fall right in line with that, kind of middle of the road. And currently we have 160 people on our wait list. So that's a big number, especially when we're only going through about 5 a year. Now some people do say no, some people turn it down, so we may go through the list a little bit quicker. Trying to think what else. The marina was staffed through October 31st, and the launch closed December 1st when ice formed on the bay. Other than that, our revenues were close to 300,000. We estimated about 220,000, and so we had a positive balance of about 62,000. Our escrow is projected at about $1 million. Any questions?
I assume that the escrow is for stuff like replacing the dock and.
Yep, capital
repairing.
improvement. Yeah. So if we have to do any dock improvements or building improvements, replacing the fuel tanks, large projects like that.
If I can interject to with the agreement with the DNR owns the land, so they will take care of the parking lot, any upgrades to that, or the launch area, or the boarding docks that are specified for the launch. And then the city is responsible for what Kaylee had mentioned.
City's responsible for what was
For
the
what
last thing?
Kaylee had mentioned.
Okay. And is there an option to put in more slips since there's so many people that want some?
There's really not more room there, so no. Unless we can somehow figure out how to do like a parking garage for boats.
I didn't realize the DNR actually owns the property. So is there an agreement that, I mean, can they decide they want to use it for something else and kind of cut us out, or
I think it would have to be agreed upon with us. They can't just
there's some sort of agreement that would be?
Right, there is a joint use agreement
Okay.
that we have with the DNR.
And now that we finally cracked $1 million on the escrow, kind of probably where Ann was heading, do we have sort of like projections or planning or what we think the most likely expenditures in the future would be and when they might occur? Like the tanks or dock maintenance or?
Yeah, I'll go to Mike on this. I would say docks are probably next.
Docks will need some work on I guess the walking area of the docks. The pilings are still in really good shape, which we weren't expecting that at this point. So the major cost is really in the pilings, is what I understand, and then the gas holding tank would be the next thing that would be coming up.
Okay.
Now, everything that we've set aside, costs have increased a little faster than we thought in the last 5-10 years, but we're still, the escrow balance is still healthy to cover those things.
And Chair, every year we bring the capital improvement plan, so the CIP, we bring that to you, and that would be where you would see a page for Grays Bay Marina, where we would project that. So we haven't had that because we haven't had anything that we could foresee for 5 years, but when we do have something, especially at the marina, it's a very large expenditure when you talk about, pilings and
Sure.
holding tanks. So yes, $1 million is a healthy balance, but the capital expenditures will be very large as well.
Great. Any other questions or comments from the board? Thank you, Kaylee. It was a good report. This is an asset to the city. They have the marina there. Thank you. Next, the athletic summary.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, business item 7B is the 2024 athletic field use summary. So Mike Pavelka is here. He's our community facilities superintendent, and he will go over the field use for 2024.
I don't want to go over everything here. You've probably seen this already, but generally speaking, the fees were introduced to all of our fields that we reserve to the public or even within the community organizations in the city. That went into effect in 2010, helped us kind of streamline who was using, how much people were using. Before it was kind of more of a field grab where they get a lot of hours and maybe not use many of those. And this kind of streamlined things to be able to take care of that and get the fields used as well as we can. In addition, with those fees, the fees that are collected are split 33 and 1/3, 2/3, and 1/3 going to capital upgrades, maintenance, that sort of thing, and then the rest is for operational maintenance. It goes to the bottom line of the general fund. 2024, the field hours were basically the same, within 3 hours, which is interesting. And then the field fee revenue was, had increased by about $3,000. So the amount that was set aside for capital fund for future improvements was about $15,000 for this past year. The fees were last increased in 2023. It was about a 10, depending on which category you were in, about a 10 to 15% increase. And we'll be looking at those fees again this coming fall.
Questions or comments?
Are the city-sponsored programs charged a fee?
They are not. Those are our recreation programs like adult softball, we've got kickball, youth soccer.
So that explains why the Big Willow softball field had no revenue, because it was all city-sponsored?
Correct.
Okay. And what's the difference between the regular fields and the youth fields? Are they smaller?
Right, so the REG is regulation size,
Regulation,
so
okay.
it's 90-foot bases. Youth size fields, that's the difference between those.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? And you said, I'm sorry, the fee increases would be reviewed this fall for next year?
We compare it to other local municipalities and come back with a, with the comparison and where we feel we should be at that point in time.
Okay. Thank you.
Chair, if I could just add one thing,
Sure.
I guess I would just, a lot of people don't realize how many requests we get for fields, and so Mike and his staff do a great job managing those. There's always new teams and new schools and new whomever wants to come and use our fields, so they do a great job managing the fields. And the second thing is we hear a lot of good comments from outside teams who come in and play at our fields, so I think that's a tribute to Darren and his staff about how well they're maintained too, because we get a lot of comments on Big Willow and all the different fields that we have in our city. I think they're definitely well maintained, and people really see that.
I noticed the soccer, Lone Lake Soccer really jumped for non-city sponsored programs in terms of hours use. Thank you.
Thanks.
I have a question about the Glen Lake, I don't know how you pronounce it, futsal court?
It's like a soccer. Yep.
Yeah, but I looked it up because I didn't know what it was, and it says it's an indoor soccer court, which apparently this isn't.
Correct. So it's on basically on a tennis court sized area at next to Glen Lake Elementary School. There's one, I think it's two courts, right? One is a tennis court and one is a futsal court.
Two tennis.
Two
Two
tennis.
tennis, one futsal. Yep. So
And
it's
that
all-
was the one that was resurfaced. I remember we had to be resurfaced and we painted it for futsal, however you say that, futsal
Right.
at the time.
Okay.
Correct.
Good.
And that was, I think, a request from a resident
Yep,
group
yep,
when
it
we were
was.
looking at resurfacing some courts, and Darren and we researched it and made that decision.
It's great. Okay, next is reports from staff.
Sounds good. Thank you, Chair. So before I get into or send over the one info item, I have three announcements. First of all, I want to thank Park Board Member Jacobs. Tonight is Ben's last meeting, so I just wanted to say thank you for your years of service. I know you've been here for quite a while. We've had some projects that have been very heated at times, and I guess I really just appreciate the service. I know it's not easy. Again, the pay is low here at the Park Board, but your volunteerism, I appreciate that. I always appreciate your straightforwardness and your willingness to comment the way you feel too. So thank you. We appreciate your service to the Park Board. I appreciate that. With that mentioned, we had two people who termed out last month, and so the City Council did interviews this past Monday night, so they will be appointing 3 new members this next Monday, February 10th, and they should be able to, hopefully they can start at our March meeting. So we'll have 3 new members coming in. We're still looking for a student member, so if we didn't get any applications for student member, I know. So if you know of anybody, please feel free to send them my way. I don't know that the application process is open anymore, but I know that the mayor is always willing to talk to somebody, especially if we have a student who's interested. We can do our best to get them on. So, reminder that that's open.
What's the age?
Oh,
Well, I believe it's probably 16 to 25. I know it's under 25 to be a young adult, so it could be a college student as well. But so I would say 16 to 25.
yeah. And typically we've had high school and college aged kids, but yeah, I suppose you could be a little bit out of college if you're 25. So, and then the last thing I wanted to just mention was that internally we're going to have a change in leadership here at the park board. This is kind of new. So we've been talking about this for a few months. So we'll have a new contact. So Sarah and I will still be at meetings, but I will no longer be the main contact of the park board. Leslie Yetka is going to do that.
Okay.
So for a few different reasons, some are just personal reasons, and then some are, it also makes sense. The Natural Resources has a number of business items, I think, throughout the year. And so she will take over as the main contact. Sarah and I are still going to be here. Recreation will still have an active role in the board, but starting at the March meeting. And we thought with 3 new members coming on, it was probably the right timing in that we'll be training them and kind of going over some things. And so I'll be here. Sarah and I both of us may not be here at every meeting, but Leslie will be the new contact. So I think this is a good thing for everybody. It's not a huge change on our end, really. I think it's a good thing. So that's my last announcement. I think I'm going to turn it over to Matt for the one info item.
Yes, thank you, Park Board. We had a community work group meeting on January 22nd. This was the first meeting of this particular group. The group is comprised of 2 public works staff, 1 staff from public safety, 2 park board members, 2 folks from the Friends of Minnetonka Parks, and 2 folks from the PAWS organization that's formed during the Purgatory Master Planning process, and 5 residents, what I'd call free agents. These were folks that applied through Minnetonka Matters and were appointed to the group via the mayor through a process over there. So this kickoff meeting was focused on generating general themes around what off-leash areas should look like, what generally the concerns of the group are, things such as safety in the parks, park user impact by off-leash dogs, protection of natural resources, and sort of this general overall quality of life that a lot of people feel come from off-leash dogs in the parks and city-owned land. So the goal of this first meeting was to sort of establish these themes, meet one another, get off on the right foot. The next meeting will be on February, it's in the packet, I see it says the 22nd, it's actually the 19th. It's Wednesday the 19th. So correction, Wednesday, February 19th. And the goal of that meeting will be to dive into more specifics about what would make a good or ideal off-leash area, what are the particular site characteristics, or what would essentially rule an area out. Concerns about natural resources impacts or traffic close to homes. So we'll be sort of working together, produce a list of what really would make a good off-leash area, what would rule an area out for off-leash dogs. So that'll be on February 19th. It'll be the second of 3 meetings in advance of the park ordinance kicking in on May 19th at this point. So the reminder, the work group is to determine designated off-leash areas prior to that. Questions?
Can I just add one thing before that? I did confirm with our city manager that the recommendations would come back to the park board. So we're looking at the timing with the park board meetings and the council meetings. We may add a meeting in late April or move that early May meeting. So more to come on that, but the plan would be to have the recommendations come to the park board and then go to the city council. So more to come on future schedule.
Thanks. Questions, comments?
I'm sorry, I have more questions.
Sure.
Is the community service officer going to be more actively participating in some of these so that we don't, just so we don't make something that's unenforceable?
I think, she's there to participate along with us. This is Captain Meehan. She'll be there to answer questions and guide the group. And I think once we dive into the nitty-gritty of what makes a good site, what ultimately is easier for them to enforce versus characteristics of a location that would make it more difficult to enforce, when we get into particulars about signage and general expectation over common courtesy in the park space, she'll be weighing in as much as she feels necessary. So she's meant to be an active part of the group.
Okay, what I heard her say, or I was afraid she saw her role as rather passive and that she was only going to participate if somebody asked a specific question, and I would prefer she be a little more active.
We can certainly clarify our roles internally and discuss that. Yeah.
And then you mentioned the idea about not having negative impacts to the natural resources in the park. Will there be the natural resources master plan and the post plans available? I mean, so that we don't push ourselves off into something that's in conflict?
Certainly the relevant documents that you mentioned are going to be key in determining what would make an appropriate location or rule a location out. There's language in the post plan and their NRMP that refers to ecological quality and the need for dog parks in the city. It doesn't dive into the particulars where they should go necessarily. No. So hopefully we're able to distill the relevant information out of those documents.
Other comments? I've got some, but before, any other questions or comments? Just on that last part, and to clarify, Ann and I are representing the park board so we're the two representatives on the group. I've talked with Matt after the meeting. I guess one of the questions I have is, it would seem like all the effort and time that went into the National Resource Plan and the post plan, that there's probably some tenets or key practices that are in there that sort of could help set a foundation for how the group looks at the effort. And since most of the people there didn't participate in the resource plan or the post plan, and I'm not sure how much the consultants have seen it, it would seem a good step at the next meeting to have some presentation around what those guidelines or things would come out of that. So we are kind of consistent with what's already been, or if we want to change, at least we're saying that this is a deviation from the post plan or the natural resource plan. And then I'm hoping that at the next meeting there'll be some guidance around best practices. My personal feeling from the first meeting was it felt like the group was kind of winging it, kind of making it as we go along, because there was no prep materials around kind of best practices, and I think the notes from the meeting kind of reflect that. So I'm hoping that, because we only have, basically we're a third of the way done. We have one of the three meetings complete. So a lot has to happen in the next two meetings. What's the park board's role? And I'm asking that because some things we review and approve kind of with a vote, like the Purgatory Master Plan was I think was a vote, whereas the leash ordinance was a review and comment kind of thing. And I'm just curious, given when it comes to us, are we reviewing and commenting, or are we approving a recommendation? And I'm bringing that up principally because reviewing the comments by the city council after the leash ordinance, a couple of the council members sort of expressed some concern or some reservation that the park board didn't have a more clear perspective on particularly the what do you call them, retractable leashes. And I think the majority of the park board at the time commented that they were not comfortable with retractable leashes, but that was the way it was written, and just that was our comment.
Yeah, I didn't think we had an option.
Yeah, well, that's why that's kind of why I'm asking, because I remember one of the council members in particular was I felt kind of bad after hearing her comments that somehow we weren't more effective in kind of sharing what our perspective was, because she was looking for the park board to kind of take a position on that. So I'm just kind of curious, are we reviewing and commenting or approving a recommendation?
That's a great question. Yeah,
Okay.
I would like to confer with our
Okay,
city
that would be
manager on
great to
that.
have-
And Matt, I,
It would be great to have,
Yep.
particularly because of the timing of the meetings
Sure.
and stuff, but
yep,
there's a difference in that.
yep, understand.
And then who's accountable for success? Who's accountable for success of this effort?
That's a good question.
Is it the consultant, or is it staff? Or is it, because it's hard to say the working group is accountable for the success because they're being managed by a process. And I know in the minutes, you know, Matt, you comment, you assist in helping meetings move along, which doesn't sound to me like, and I'm not being negative, it sounds to me like you're helping the process. And so I'm kind of looking for who's accountable for, at the end of the day, yeah, this was a good effort.
I'm hoping at the end of the day it's a good effort, and then we can come out with a community that has designated off-leash areas that welcome folks in our community. Really, I keep thinking about my goal as a park project manager is to get as many people as possible into our park systems and to protect the natural resources, and there's going to be compromises in there. So it's hard for me to predict what's going to come out of this process.
Oh, no, and I'm not suggesting anyone can predict that. It's just more who's accountable to make sure that the meetings are successful, I guess. My takeaway from the first meeting was the consultants probably felt that way, which had me a little nervous based on their performance at the meeting. So that's just something to consider.
I feel like this is a relatively new process. I know we've done some of these work groups before, but talking to folks internally, never had an issue quite like this come up, so we're kind of braving new paths. Yes, we have a limited time, but I think ultimately that forces us to move efficiently and not bog down with too many meetings and make some decisions as fast as possible. And we come out of this with real ideas about where these could go and what their characteristics are, and then we roll those out into the park system.
Okay. Okay, other questions or comments?
Okay, I will move on to the meeting schedule, which is 8B. So our next regular scheduled meeting is Wednesday, March 5th. We do not have a meeting on April 2nd. We have a number of spring breaks that week, and so we took that off. The next scheduled meeting then after that would be May 7th. Again, we'll determine if we have to shift that meeting a little bit depending on the schedule for the working group. And then June, we will have the CIP, our Capital Improvements Plan, back. Some upcoming events, we still have Sauna in the Parks at Shady Oak Beach. They are going Fridays, Saturday, and Sunday through April. This coming Saturday, we have the Winter's Market here at the Community Center. Stay tuned, weather. It sounds like we may get some weather, but hopefully we'll get that in here on the 8th. And then the Spring Extravaganza is Saturday, April 5th. That's all I have.
I have a question about July. Is there a July meeting or not?
We do not have a meeting scheduled in
thought
July.
not. Okay.
Correct. Yep.
You can take your vacation.
I'm going to be in France bicycling, so I'm...
All right. If there's nothing else, do I have a motion for adjournment? Oh, number 9? Oh, gosh, sorry about that. Park board member reports. Someone better have one now.
Do you want to say anything more about the dog meeting? I mean, I thought it was a good start. I have some of the process creeps me out, but it's
Because of speed or something else?
when you're forced to say, of all the things I want in a dog park, this is the most important. I fear that there's important nuances that get lost when you just look at the top little sliver of importances.
Well, I guess I'll comment on the positive note. I thought that given as we are well aware, the emotional tenor of dog discussions at our meetings in the past, I thought that the group, the participants did a really good job of being very positive. There wasn't any, anything like what we saw at our open meetings, and I think the group is hopeful to make a solution. So,
I guess I have one more thought. I'd like to double down on the idea that we're determining a process and we're getting this going, but we're not going to lock in for the rest of eternity where these are and the nature of these off-leash areas in our park systems. We're going to be continuing to do restoration and maintenance plans. We're going to be continuing to do master planning on our park system. Really, what we'd ultimately come out of this is a process that helps us decide where it does make sense, where it doesn't make sense. We're not going to have them all determined, all buttoned up, but we generally can say that we figured out the best way to do it for the city of Minnetonka.
except we do have to have a designation for some area on May 19th, because otherwise
Or we
there
won't
is
have
no
any.
off-leash area.
Or we won't have any. Yep.
Yeah,
And
I-
what- And once you put up fencing, nobody's going to want to take the fencing down.
well, they might. They might.
Well,
but-
okay.
But I agree with you, Matt, that
There's a lot of money would have been sunk.
depends what kind of fence. I'm kidding.
True, yeah.
But I
There's
agree with
no
you, Matt,
fence.
that my biggest concern is that by the 19th, we have something tangible as a starting point. And I do think, to the extent there's an opportunity for more than one area, this is a process to help us work that down the road. I would agree with that. Any other comments? Oh, reports? The rinks look great. And all the new sign, everywhere I go now, all the places are new signed and monument stoned, right? They all look, everything
Yeah, they
I've
look
seen
nice.
is new. It looks great.
Yeah, they look great. There's a whole batch of signs that don't have stone bases but have that top part that are going to go in. So
Okay.
you're still seeing older ones. Bonus info item.
Great.
But there'll be more signs in the spring.
Yeah, I just report thanks to staff, Kelly and Sarah and everybody. Been great working with the guys for the last 7 years almost, and I think the parks are in really a lot better shape and continuing to improve. Thanks, good serving with you guys, and I know you're going to be doing great work, so I'll keep coming back, especially the farmers market. We'll be around, but
We'll miss you. Our loss is Chaska's gain,
yeah,
right?
well, thank you.
Thank you very much. So now I'll come back to the premature question I asked before. Anybody, is there a motion for adjournment?
I will make a motion for adjournment.
Good for you.
Last time.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Guess we're adjourned.
Thank you.